Hello, everyone. Okay. Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Craig Considine. This is my third Periscope broadcast. I am a lecturer in the Department of Sociology at Rice University here in Houston, Texas. And as a researcher and scholar, I focus on several key issues, one being Christian-Muslim relations, so interfaith dialogue. The second being ways of countering Islamophobia. And third, we might broadly understand the topic of being something like Islam and American identity. So looking at Muslim communities in the United States and their various experiences. So if you're new here, welcome. It's very nice to have you. If we haven't connected yet, please do find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is my first name, Craig, Cons, C-O-N-S. That's my Twitter handle. And you can also find me on Facebook and my website, which is craigconsidinetcd.com. So the topic of conversation today is building off of my Periscope from my second Periscope broadcast from a few days ago, which is based largely on, that one was based largely on the covenant that Prophet Muhammad had entered with the Najran Christians of what is today modern-day Yemen. So I want to continue the conversation here, and I want to share with you some views that I had put down a couple years ago in a Huffington Post article called Why I Admire Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, a response to Islamophobes. So over the course of the years, through my writing and my studies, I've been attacked, I've been criticized, I've been bashed by the Islamophobia industry, largely because I do indeed write positively about Prophet Muhammad and the Islamic tradition, broadly speaking. So this is problematic to a lot of Christians in the United States and in the world because I personally am Catholic. I'm Irish, Italian, Catholic. So when I write positively of Muhammad or I speak positively of Muhammad, Christians kind of get freaked out and they're wondering how I can recognize him as a prophet while still maintaining a Christian identity. So people see my academic writing and my interfaith activities as somehow sacrilegious, and they actually push me outside of the boundary of a Christian identity. So the people who are criticizing my type of work, and this is the type of work that is done by thousands and thousands of Christians worldwide that are trying to bridge the gap between Muslims and Christians. We have people who are seeing Islam and the Prophet Muhammad in really kind of dark terms, right? So they take a certain example either in the Quran and Hadith and they manipulate it and they call Prophet Muhammad all sorts of names without reiterating them. I'm sure you're familiar with what some of these terms might be. See, my perspective of Prophet Muhammad is much different from how the Islamophobes depict him. So what I want to do in this short broadcast is to share with you some of my views of Prophet Muhammad, his exemplary character and his characteristics. So let me start by referencing his preference and his work towards building a society based on equality. So I see Prophet Muhammad as an individual that promotes equality. Now, in his last sermon at Mount Arafat, he provided a very, very powerful statement, and some of you may be familiar with this statement. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. A white person has no superiority over a black, nor does a black person have any superiority over white except by piety and good action. Okay, so this passage is essentially, at its core, it's an anti-racist statement. Prophet Muhammad is taking a very strong stance against judging people based on the color of their skin. He is advocating for something that Martin Luther King echoed 50 or so years ago, that he hopes that one day his children will be judged by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. So Prophet Muhammad is talking about this in 630. So we're talking 1,000 years before Martin Luther King. So Prophet Muhammad's message is ensuring freedom in society. It's a democratic message. And I think, and I've written about this before, his message that he shares in the last sermon was a precursor to the United States Constitution. Now, obviously, the founding fathers of America did not reference Prophet Muhammad in the Constitution or any of the kind of founding documents, but it's interesting because Muhammad's efforts in building a society based on equality rather than ethnicity or race is something that I think many people see coming out of the U.S. Constitution, at least theoretically, right? It hasn't always been applied. So in theory, Muhammad and the U.S. Constitution are echoing similar egalitarian values, a pluralist outlook, okay? Now, building off of racial and ethnic equality, we also have Prophet Muhammad advocating for religious tolerance, and this is something that I clearly noted in the previous Periscope broadcast in relation to his own relations with the Najran Christians of modern-day Yemen. So Prophet Muhammad, in his covenant with this particular Christian community, is saying that all Christians should have the absolute freedom to worship, the freedom of conscience, the freedom to build churches, the freedom to worship in safety and security and in peace. So the second thing that I really do admire about Prophet Muhammad is his preference for religious pluralism. Not simply tolerance, religious pluralism. And if you want to know the distinction between those two terms, I suggest you watch the previous broadcast. But what I particularly like and admire about Prophet Muhammad here is his respect and love, especially for Jews and Christians. Again, we're placing this within the Abrahamic tradition, the idea of the one true God. So in the Treaty of Makkah, this is something that a lot of you may not be familiar with, but in the Treaty of Makkah, the Prophet Muhammad told followers of Judaism, the Jews, that you may be in peace. This is a direct quote. You may be in peace. You are in security under my rule. Towards you is no wrong and no enmity. This is Prophet Muhammad's words to the Jews in a actual legal document. He's making a political statement that Jews are part of the Ummah. Right? We have this conception of the Ummah that it's just simply a place for Muslims. But my own research is suggesting that Prophet Muhammad had a wider understanding, a wider notion of what it meant to live in a Muslim society. Okay, so the Treaty of Makkah, the respect for Jews, and as I mentioned in the previous broadcast, the respect for Christians and the covenants. So as in his relations with Jews, Muhammad also wanted to protect Christians. So if you look at the covenant of Prophet Muhammad with the Christian monks of Mount Sinai, he's echoing some of the stuff that I brought up in the previous broadcast about the Christian Najrans. So Muhammad is telling the monks at Mount Sinai in this official document, which you can find in this book by John Andrew Morrow. Definitely get this book. Muhammad is telling the monks that we are not going to interfere with your religious worship. We're not going to interfere with the building of your churches. We respect your religious authority. He's saying all these things to the monks at Mount Sinai. So this is a very, very unprecedented move. And it makes you wonder, really, if Muhammad had gone into Christian lands, whether he would have been, the Christians would have been as open and as tolerant. Now, the treatment in terms of religious pluralism and tolerance that Prophet Muhammad demonstrated to Christians and Jews is in direct contrast with what we see happening with groups like ISIS. So a lot of people on Twitter yesterday started calling me an ISIS sympathizer, which is difficult to wrap my head around. I am a huge critic of ISIS, and the reason why I'm a huge critic of ISIS is because I admire Prophet Muhammad's vision. Prophet Muhammad's vision was directly opposed to what ISIS is doing today. So what we see happening in Iraq and in Syria with the destruction of churches, with the mass slaughtering of Christians and a Christian exodus happening in the Middle East, this runs directly in the opposite direction of what Muhammad was asking Muslims to do in relation to religious minorities. So I admire Muhammad because he was an advocate for religious tolerance, which 1,000 years after his time roughly became a principle of American identity. So we have a nice bridge there, okay? So by advocating for racial equality, by advocating for religious pluralism and tolerance, Prophet Muhammad essentially, bigger picture now, was advocating for human rights. Okay, now this is something that the term human rights is not often associated with Prophet Muhammad, but let's consider some things for a moment. The position of women in Islam at his time. Prophet Muhammad, as depicted in modern Islamophobia circles, they depict him as some type of monster, that he somehow oppressed women. It's actually the exact opposite if we look at his historical content. So Prophet Muhammad wanted women not to live in a closed little circle in their home. He actually wanted them to be free, and he gave them liberty so that the women could pursue the life that they desire, which in tribal Arab society at the time was unheard of, and it was probably unheard of in many other regions of the world as well. Okay? Now, two of Prophet Muhammad's closest female companions demonstrate this point, that he wanted women to be free, that he wanted women to enjoy their liberty. So his wife, Khadija, was a successful merchant who ran her own caravan trade, right? If Prophet Muhammad had an issue with a powerful woman, why on earth would he marry Khadija? If Prophet Muhammad had an issue with women working outside of the home, why would he marry Khadija? Okay, so Khadija is a great example. Another of the Prophet's wives, Aisha, became one of the top Muslim scholars and jurists, and one of the first ever female scholars of Islam ever. Okay, so if Prophet Muhammad didn't want women to get an education, why on earth would he enter into a marriage with a woman that was brilliant and that actually became a scholar? So these little tidbits here from Prophet Muhammad's life show that he's advocating for human rights. And we just looked at that through the prism of women. So the relationship that he had with his wives shows us a few things: that he wanted women to partake in law and politics and business, right? In a country like Saudi Arabia, you have very, very few women taking up leadership position roles. But what we see in the life of Prophet Muhammad is that there are some key examples here that show, or that kind of prove, that what Saudi Arabia and other conservative countries are doing, and I don't want to generalize too much here, but the idea that Muslim women are supposed to not take leadership positions just doesn't really add up to the reality of Prophet Muhammad's life. Okay, so racial equality, religious pluralism, human rights, women's rights, all reasons why I admire Prophet Muhammad. Now we have smaller things outside of this, this message of equality, of tolerance, that makes me appreciate Prophet Muhammad. And this is a smaller point, but as noted in the Quran, which is obviously revealed to Muhammad, the Quran asks Muslims not to defame or be sarcastic towards other people. So basically, be a good person, be nice to people. So Prophet Muhammad believed that name calling, so being rude to other people, hating other people, he actually said it was wicked. And he actually encouraged people, his followers to be civil towards each other, to be respectful towards each other in all interactions. I mean, even the basic greeting, salam alaikum, peace be with you. How could Prophet Muhammad possibly be this barbarian that Islamophobes make him out to be if that is what he was calling on people to do? Peace be with you. Okay, so little things like this go a long way in shedding a bright, beautiful light on the life of Prophet Muhammad. And another thing I like about him is he taught people to be humble. Muslims and non-Muslims. Be humble with what God has given you and what you have been able to achieve in this life. So, in conclusion here, a message to all Islamophobes who like to beat and batter Prophet Muhammad. I suggest that you all open your minds and make space in your brains for stories that are more constructive and positive, because certainly, and this is a historical fact, that there is so much material out there that shows that Prophet Muhammad is the exact opposite of what the Islamophobes make him out to be, right? And I've been talking about this in previous broadcasts. So if the Prophet were alive today, it would be interesting. What would he actually do to the Islamophobes and other people that hate Islam? The Islamophobes would say, oh, Prophet Muhammad would cut off my head. No, he actually wouldn't. What he would do, and this is another reason why I admire him, what he would do is he would show them mercy and compassion despite their actions. And we have a nice bridge between Muhammad and Jesus here. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Prophet Muhammad and the Quran emphasizes compassion and mercy. Look up the Bismillah. Compassion and mercy are found throughout the Quran. These are the reasons why I truly do admire Prophet Muhammad. And he would also tell the Islamophobes, seek more knowledge. The ink of the scholar is more sacred than the blood of the martyr. That is a great hadith of Prophet Muhammad. So Islamophobes, you have 4 things that you need to consider in talking about Prophet Muhammad. He advocated for racial equality. He advocated for religious pluralism. He advocated for human rights. He advocated for women's rights. And he tried to teach people how to be civil, honest, respectful people. So that is why I admire Prophet Muhammad. You can find my article that I wrote on this subject on Huffington Post. You can also follow me at Craig Cons, CraigCons. I'm also on Facebook. You'll see me all over social media. I'm at it every single day, trying to spread the good news and the good vibes and to tackle some of these darker elements that we see in society. It's a long struggle to defeat those that spread fear and bigotry, but we are stronger than they are, and I think at the end of the day, light and hope always prevails. All right, everyone, that's it from here. Look forward to talking to you all throughout the days. Peace. Take care.